This is my leadership philosophy presentation. I have been in the workforce now for over 30 years, and I have worked with a lot of different types of leaders and been a leader myself. So this is going to talk about the different things that I believe are important in leadership and what a leader's responsibility is. So my leadership philosophy is that it is the leader's responsibility to provide an efficient, supportive, and prosperous environment that allows the organization and people to be successful. The individual leadership traits that I think are very important is that someone is trustworthy, they're authentic, they're confident, they're courageous, they understand the difference between personal power versus positional power, they listen actively, they are a decision maker, and they have good communication skills. The leadership traits that I think are important for followers is that the leader should lead by example, they should provide clear direction, provide support, have a calm demeanor, value their employees, show appreciation to their employees, respect others' opinions, create a path for success for the employees, be thoughtful, and have a sense of humor. Two of my leadership traits that I feel strongly about is having a strong work ethic and trust. I think I got these base leadership traits from my father. So he was the first leader of my life, and he was a lightning researcher and engineer at the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral. I knew him for his honesty, his sense of humor. He had a very strong work ethic, had a very cool job working with lightning and keeping lightning off the shuttle pad and airplanes and all kinds of things during his career. He was very trustworthy. He was also authentic. And so I think the two good things that I learned from him were to have a strong work ethic and to be trustworthy. He was also critical, and he could have a temper, and I think with my mother that made her submissive. So in that respect, I learned to provide support for anyone that feels like they can't stand up for themselves. And so I think that is something that I learned because I watched the reaction of my mother with my father when he was critical, or my own reaction to my father when he was being a little bit critical. So a great man, we all have our faults, but I think that is how I learned, or I became, that support was so important to me. So in my career, I took a little bit different route to school, and I started working at UF, I think it was 1986, down at the Health Science Center. So there I had a boss that was very task-oriented. He really was a person that used his positional power, and the person that I had there that was my mentor was a woman mentor, which was great. She was actually my supervisor, or maybe not even directly my supervisor, but she taught me a lot. She taught me to have confidence in myself, to use my personal power. She provided me support. She led by example. She was very calm. She had a sense of humor. And again, she had a strong work ethic. So again, the strong work ethic shows in my own leadership style right now, and I do think all leaders should be working as hard, if not harder, than the people that work for them. My next job in my career at UF moved me up the hill, as they say, over into Tygart Hall. I ended up working for a department at the time. It was called Administrative Computing Services, and this is where I worked with a man who had been hired to create campus-wide systems. Now, we're still back in the 80s, but the person that I worked for, it's the first time that I felt so far in my career that we were actually partners. Yes, he was my supervisor and he was teaching me how to do things, but he was also guiding me. This organization had been around quite a while, so the majority of the leadership there really relied on their position of power, or not, very supportive. I think I was told on my first day to, pull myself up by my bootstraps, but my direct supervisor was not like this. He was younger, he was not straight out of college, but what he did for me is he cleared a path for me, and he created a path for me to be successful. And so maybe 2 or 3 years out of school, I was presenting to executives. I was very comfortable presenting. I was very comfortable doing design work. He showed his appreciation. He respected my opinion, and he gave me confidence. I was slowly gaining confidence as my career went on, and that also changed the way I interacted with leaders and also my own leadership style. So my next leadership role, and the thing that has impacted my leadership philosophy, is with my family. And so I had several roles. I was a mom, I was a volunteer worker, and I had to communicate. And those were all this was a different kind of leadership role, and I know everybody out there has one, but then I needed for work. So with my children, of course, I needed to provide support, be a decision maker, create a path for success, use emotional intelligence, keep my temper, value the differences that they brought in, show them appreciation, and everything that you do as a parent. I'm very happy to say that my children have grown up to be very responsible adults, so that's something I'm proud of. On the other side, I was also a volunteer leader at their school. And working with a group of volunteers, you do have to change your leadership style because they are volunteering. So you have to be, you have to communicate well, you have to motivate. Motivation is very important when it comes to volunteering. You do have to set some expectations, but you also have to understand that people are volunteering their time. So you may or may not, you learn pretty quickly who you can depend on. And so this experience really impacted me because I took it back when I started managing people that did work for me. So that's how my family impacted my leadership philosophy. So now all of a sudden I'm a manager, and I also got an opportunity to teach. So I was doing 2 new leadership responsibilities. So I knew that I needed to be confident. When I started teaching, I felt like I needed to be courageous. This was something that I hadn't done before. I had the experience behind me. I was only teaching part-time, but it was a great experience. I did that for about 2 or 3 years. When you're teaching, you have to provide clear direction. A sense of humor works great. You have to respect other people's opinions. And it was very different than leading a group of volunteers, as I said in my last slide. The students couldn't do anything without me there, where the volunteers may or may not show up. So I was a manager also at work, and so I was very task-oriented. We had a very large implementation that we started in 2003, and we were given about 18 months to change all of our systems for finance and HR over to a new system called MyUFL. And so we worked very long days and long nights, and at that point I started shifting from a manager to a leader, but I think I was more of a manager. And at the same time, I've always put an emphasis on the fact that the people that you are leading and that are following you deserve your respect. They deserve your honesty. They deserve your trust. This group of people that we worked with through the implementation and several years after were very close because we were working so many hours. But we all worked right alongside of each other, and we got the work done no matter what. I was managing at that point at a very task-oriented level, and my employees were just very dedicated. So I really I had a few problem employees, and I learned very quickly how to manage problem employees. We just didn't have time to, really play around with anybody that wasn't going to work out. And that's probably not the best leadership skill, but I did learn from that you do need to be honest with people if they're not doing something correctly. So after our implementation, our whole department moved out to East Campus. It was one of the first offices to move out to East Campus. Our offices have been brandly new, renovated. I still had a team that came over with me, but now I'm more of a leader. I'm on the management team. I'm making leadership decisions. I have, again, a dedicated staff, but I really need to learn how to be a leader versus a manager. And so I was actually very lucky and was able to attend a next level leadership class, which, I have been a manager for quite a while, so I thought I was doing great. I mean, I thought I was, I was teaching I was working with my employees, I was appreciating them, I was supporting them, which support has always been very important to me. I go back to my slide with my father. And this was a year-long teaching session for me. And what I realized is that I was managing my group like we were still in crisis mode. I was, very task-oriented and, did you get this done yet? But I also felt, that I did admire them and that I did tell them, that they were doing a good job and, was very free with praise. One of the things that I learned, however, is that whenever you take a 360 evaluation of yourself, you need to take a deep breath. But the one thing that I learned was that what I viewed as supporting behavior, my staff was reviewing as controlling behavior. So this course really took me out of my comfort zone, and I learned a lot about being able to interact with my team. I met with my team after that. I apologized for any perceptions that I did not intend for, and I have over the years continued to change my leadership style. This is one of the reasons I signed up to have this be my bachelor degree in communications and leadership, because I am a self-pronounced leadership geek. I really think it is very important. I have a difficult time with leaders that do not take their leadership seriously, or they try to get their way by bullying other people, yelling and screaming in the room. I'm learning how to handle that. I also use a thing called a mirroring technique, where if I'm going into a room and I'm saying something, I try to tell people, see how somebody else would how I would react if somebody said the same thing to me. And so I am much more aware of the impact of being a leader is, and I think every day I take the opportunity to learn, and I also feel so strongly about employees feeling supported. There was one statement in one of the lectures where we talked about how important it is for a leader and a follower to work together, and that really followers have all the power, and they do. A leader can't do anything without followers. So that was something that I learned during this time, and it really was a life-changing year for me. So I wanted to close with the fact that I did do a leadership interview for another class with Angel Quallett-Bolin. I thought some of the quotes that she said were very appropriate for this class, and these are a couple things that I try to keep in mind. So, from her words, the challenge is to recognize no matter who you are as a leader, you are in the middle of a sandwich and managing up and down. Negotiations between both can be tricky. Understanding and working with both can be a challenge. Even people who are at the top are still the tomato or the lettuce or the turkey. So I think, the point there being is that no matter who you are, you're always going to be reporting to someone. Whether it be, if you're the President of the United States, you have the whole world watching, and you have the whole country watching. If you're the President of the university, you have to report to the Board of Directors. If you are, a director, you have to report to a senior director, but you also have people following you. So you're stuck in the middle, and, you need to manage up and you need to manage down, and you need to do it very deliberately. A couple other leadership quotes that I actually have at the top of all my meeting notes is to assume the best. I think in our world sometimes we assume the worst, and so I try to focus on that. And the other piece is that you can't learn anything by listening to yourself. And so I try to use that to make sure that I listen to what other people are saying in a leadership setting or any setting before I respond. That way I try to make sure that I understand what they're saying before I have any input. So I hope that this is a good leadership philosophy presentation, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you.